Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Spill, a movie night podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea. Film Spill, if you already don't know, is a podcast that comes out every week, and we talk about a movie by a female filmmaker every episode. We also discuss women in the entertainment industry in general. We play slumber party type games, spill entertainment gossip, and get to know each other and our guest. This week, we have a very special guest, Lizzie, who is a producer with Onyx. Lizzie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lizzie. I've been a producer with Onyx for, wow, I guess 2.5 years now. And I'm really excited to be here. Yay.
Yes, this is Lizzie's first time on.
It is.
So I'm super excited to have you on. And I'm really excited to talk about this movie with you today.
Oh, yes, I love this movie.
It was such a great, refresher.
I haven't seen it since it came out in theaters.
Oh my God, remember when it came out in theaters though?
Yes, that was what, like 11 or 12 years ago?
Yeah.
We were so young. I didn't understand a lot of it at that age too. Like when I went back and watched it, I was like, oh, I didn't like internalize any of this when I was 10 or whatever.
Right? I forgot some parts of it too. So rewatching it, I was like, oh, like this happens. And I
Yeah.
didn't understand the art behind it and how nicely and beautifully this movie was shot and just the story,
Yeah, because you
how
can't
they
really
intertwine.
appreciate that when you're a kid. Yeah, you don't,
Yeah.
it doesn't sink in.
Yeah, exactly. But before we get into all of the details, I want to know what got you into Onyx, or how did you discover Onyx? I feel like I never heard that from
Yeah.
you before.
Well, it was because Jordan was looking for somebody to be obnoxious. And I just happened to fit the bill at the time because I had blue hair, which was, well, blue green hair because I had to dye it more green for noxious. But I was in noxious. And then I decided to come on as a producer when Jordan offered it to me because I'm not really an actor. I'm a producer at heart. So I was like, it was just being obnoxious was really, really fun. It was something that I'd never done before. So it was a great experience, and I was really happy that it led into this producer position for me because I've been really happy at Onyx ever since. So, I'm lucky that that came down the pipe for me.
Yeah, I saw you in Noxious. You did an incredible job. I really love the film. What got you wanting to go to USC?
A few members of my family had went there. My parents actually met there because they went to grad school there together. My parents are aerospace engineers, which is kind of wild compared to what I do. Like whenever people hear what my parents do, they're like, "Wow, how did that happen?" I couldn't do math, so I was like, "All right, that's not going to work out." And then some other members of my family, like they kind of, it's my mom's side of the family who's in all that stuff. So they kind of took me under their wing, and I kind of got to see stuff, and I was like, okay, I want to do this. And then I was like, I got to apply to film schools, and USC was close by, and it was supposedly the best one. So I kind of just had to throw all my weight behind that and try to get in. And then from there it was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And it's been kind of a wild, bumpy ride, but I'm excited to see where it goes. I graduated last year, so I'm still kind of new at everything,
Yeah, I think we graduated around roughly the
I
same
think we
time.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like May
Did you graduate in May?
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we graduated right at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually late to my graduation though. Not physically, but just yeah,
Oh, I
I
thought
was
you meant
supposed to.
you were late to the ceremony. And I was like, oh no, your last name starts with A. You can't be late.
I know. No, I actually didn't go to the actual ceremony because it was during COVID. I didn't know
Yeah.
what the protocols
Yeah.
were. And I was just like, you know what? I don't even want to travel to Arizona to attend my graduation. So, and I actually ended up in the hospital. So I
Oh
was at the
no, that
hospital during my
sucks.
graduation. What is such coincidental is that for my high school graduation, I was at the hospital too for the same reason.
Oh my God, why?
Yeah, just my stomach problems.
Oh, I feel you. I have IBS. I got you. I also almost missed my high school graduation because I was really sick and I was like, no, I gotta go.
Yeah, I still went to. I was like, I have to make it at least I was in a wheelchair because I just left the
Oh my
hospital that same
God.
day. So
Holy
yeah, I was
shit.
wheelchaired through my high school
I mean, that's
ceremony.
kind of funny.
Yeah, because everyone's
Sure
like,
got
what?
you a lot
Like,
of attention.
it did, but like unwanted attention. So what do you see yourself doing in like the future? Like with your career, where do you see yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I still really want to be a producer, but I'm open to other stuff as well. I spent most of this year being a director's assistant, and that was really fun, but really stressful. I'm kind of just at the phase where I just kind of want to try everything I can and like see what, appeals to me. So it's kind of exciting to be like, young and fresh out of college, like figuring stuff out, but it's also kind of stressful, I'm sure, as you know.
Yeah, it is a lot of navigating because there's a lot of paths that you can go down, in this
Yeah, it's
industry.
overwhelming. You're just like, oh my God, like that's why I'm kind of glad that like well, I'm more than kind of glad that Onyx exists because it kind of has given me a lot of like direction these last couple years. Like whenever I feel overwhelmed and like what am I doing with my life, I'm like, okay, well at least I have Onyx. Like I can channel my creative energy here and I don't have to worry about, that aspect of things. So that's been really nice.
Yeah, that's how I feel like sometimes too. And because I always feel like I need to be doing something. And if I'm
Yep.
not doing anything or if I'm not working towards anything, I'm like wasting my
I'm like, what
time.
am I doing? Yeah. So it's nice to have like, okay, this is a consistent thing, a consistent creative thing that I can do and kind of have that box checked and like know that I'm at least working towards something in that respect, even when everything else feels crazy and, out of hand.
And it's great that we have access to like never ending projects that we can be a part
Yeah.
of.
Like people, are always coming to us with projects and, that's really, really nice because not everybody's in that positions, but we worked really hard to get where we are. So and I'm
Yeah.
always excited to see what the next year is going to look like for us, because like we've been working on like our 2022 recap stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, so much stuff happened this year.
Yeah, I know. And just how we've been expanding and people are getting to know who we are as like a company
Yeah.
and are finding us on the internet. It's just like, okay, yeah, like this is gonna be great
Yeah.
and
I mean,
a lot can happen.
I'm sure that every single person who listens to this will already know what Onyx is, but if you don't, you should check us out on the off chance that you like somehow randomly found this. Go check us out, onyx-films.com. I know we're going to plug everything at the end, but I figured I'd slip that in there.
Yeah, we have to slip it in the intro and in the
Yeah,
outro.
exactly.
Well, I hope that everything continues to flourish in your producer
Yeah,
career
same
and
for
that
you.
you
I'm
can.
really excited to see what happens for us in the new year. I know you're trying to move out to LA, and I really hope that that happens.
It's been a calling for some time now. I didn't even mean to come to New York initially. The only reason I came to New York is because I was going to go to AMDA, and AMDA does like
Oh,
2 years in New
yeah,
York. Yeah, and like 2 years in LA. So I'm
yeah.
like, okay,
Hmm.
I'll do the BFA. I'll do 2 years in New York and 2 years in
Hmm.
LA, even though I wanted to go to LA initially.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll be closer to home. And if anything happens, I'll be right there. 6 years later, I'm like still here.
I feel
So
you. I'm from LA, so I kind of just like never left.
yeah, how was
I
that? How
just
was like
stayed.
growing up in LA?
I honestly loved it, especially since like since all the like film industry stuff happens here, I was like kind of getting a front row seat to everything. So that was really exciting because it kind of helped me be like more sure that that was kind of what I wanted to do, because when you're still figuring stuff out, you're like, how do I know that this is the right thing for me? So it was kind of nice to be in an environment where I could be like, all right, I can vibe with this because I know that some people, and no matter what you're studying, like you can sometimes you get to college and you're like, oh, this isn't anything like I thought it would be. So it was kind of nice to like be sure that I knew what I was getting into.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I didn't know anything about behind the scenes, like producing, directing, like
Yeah,
any of that.
it
Like
was
I didn't
all
even
new.
know
Yeah.
it was all new. So when I got on set and I started working as a PA, like there was some good times and there was some bad times, but it made me realize that I
Yeah,
don't want to
being
work
a
as a
PA is
PA.
like being a PA is like probably the hardest thing I've ever done job wise. Like it's really, really soul crushing sometimes. The
Yeah, and some people
hours
do it for
and the
years.
yeah, and the stuff you have to do and like the insane workload is like mind-boggling. I
Yeah.
think that everybody needs to try it so that they can be like, all right, now I really, really, really get what's going on. If you can survive being a PA for a period of time, then you can get through anything, truly.
Yeah,
You really
seriously.
can. It's
And
the
like
best way to break in
it
and like
is,
get your sea legs and all that.
but that's when you have to really show off and like be the
Yeah.
best that you can at your job.
Yeah. That's
Because
why,
yeah.
what is it people say? You have to like earn your dues or whatever. I really wish that concept didn't exist, but since it does, I just think everybody should just go be a PA and see if you can really hack it and if this is going to be too much for you because it's a lot. It's a lot.
How long did you PA for?
I've kind of done it on and off. The first time I did it for real was the summer after high school. I was a PA on this film called Bumblebee. And I was like totally in over my head. I had no idea what I was doing. When I showed up for the job interview, I was in heels and everybody else was in like jeans and a t-shirt. And I was like, oh my God, I fucked up. Like, because when you're a teenager and like you think about going on job interviews, you think about like you got to dress up and you got to bring your resume. And then I showed up and everybody was like giving me like weird looks, being like, why are you so dressed up? And I was like, oh my God, this is not what I thought. And then I was a PA for that whole summer, and it was like the hardest job I've ever had, but it was also the best job I've ever had because all of my coworkers and bosses were so nice to me, and helped me so much, which is more than I can say for some of the jobs I've worked. So that was like my kind of me getting used to things.
That's so funny because the first time I went on set too, I overdressed. I didn't wear
Yep,
heels because I
everybody
can't
does.
walk in
That's like
heels.
the first mistake you make. Yep.
Yeah, no, seriously, because I was like, oh, I have to dress nice. Like it's my first
Yep.
day on the job, you know?
Yep.
Like I didn't know who I was going to be surrounded with. And then when you
Yeah.
go on set, you see everyone's wearing like just jeans and regular t-shirt, a hoodie,
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I don't have to dress up. I don't have to look
It
nice.
still confuses my parents sometimes because like sometimes, I'll go like shopping with my mom or whatever, and she'll be like, "Oh, like we should go and look at like some like businessy clothes for you." And I'm like, "Nobody wears that in my industry.
Yeah.
Nobody does like the office look. We all just wear casual clothes." But my parents, they work in a totally different field, so everybody does wear office clothes. So it's just kind of like that culture difference of like our industry versus others.
Yeah, I couldn't even picture myself wearing businessy clothes. Like,
Yeah. I mean, there were like a few times where I would do it, but most of the time I always just tried to match the other people around me because I didn't want to stand out and look like I didn't know what was going on.
you didn't know the vibe.
Yeah, you have to feel out the vibe every time and see,
Yeah.
how casual people are going to be.
Now, how was your network experience when you first started off in film?
It was a little bit overwhelming because I feel like, and this happened quite a lot at school. Your professors are always encouraging you to like network, and it becomes this really like formal, scary thing, and it kind of makes it feel like your relationships are more transactional because like I felt like I was being encouraged, and I can't really blame my like professors for encouraging us to network because like that's a good skill to have, but it always just kind of felt like forced and transactional. Like it didn't feel like I was forming real relationships. And that's why I really, really consider Onyx to be like my primary network in a professional sense, because I actually feel like I'm able to form real relationships with the people I'm working with and not just have it be like, we are coworkers, yay, like kind of like a mutual relationship where it doesn't feel so awkward,
Yeah,
because
networking is
networking
very
can be
stressed.
awkward. Yep, it can be really awkward to be like, hey, we both don't really care that much about each other, but we're gonna exploit each other for professional opportunities. Like, that's not really fun. I like it better when I can get to know the people I'm networking with more and like feel like I have a vested interest in them and like where we're both going.
Yeah, like there's a genuine like friendship behind just
Yes,
networking.
exactly.
And like that
Exactly.
is the good thing about creating a team is like we can lean on each other or like
Yeah.
just us sending recommendations or things that we like come across to help each
Oh
other.
yeah,
Like I feel
absolutely.
like that's
Yeah.
so needed.
I agree. I think it's been a really positive experience.
Yeah, just keeping it up. All right, so let's get into this slumber party type game that I have in store for us.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, what's the game?
Okay, so this game is which Meryl Streep movie you have to see next based on this quiz.
Ooh, okay. So we're gonna take this quiz.
Yes, I
All right,
took
let's
it and
see.
I want to see if we both get the same
All
response.
right, this quiz is called It's Time to Find Out Which Meryl Streep Movie You Should Watch Based on Your Personality. Okay.
All right, and then whenever you're ready, you can go for it. You can let us know what the question is and your response.
Okay, so the first question is what word best describes you? I think I'm gonna go with determined. Although I do kind of want to go with foodie. Okay, if I could go anywhere, where would I go? Oh, I definitely want to go to Tokyo. I've always wanted to go to Japan. How do you spend your free time? Ooh, I'm gonna go with cooking. I've been cooking a lot this year and it's been really fun. I
Oh,
didn't
that's
used to do that
awesome.
at all. Yeah. What's your favorite movie genre? Oh, well, I would normally go with sci-fi, but that's not on here, so I'm gonna go with comedy. Choose a career. All right, what would I be doing if I didn't do film? I'm gonna put writer just for fun. All right, what brings me comfort? Oh, I'm gonna go with friends. Yeah, that's a good one. What inspires me most? I guess I have to say the media since that's what inspires us. Oh, okay, I got my result. Okay, I have to watch She Devil. I haven't seen that one. A husband and wife struggle with their romance until an affair leads to their breakup. I thought I'd seen every Meryl Streep movie, so it's good to get in some that I haven't seen before. She looks quite young in this picture, so I'm guessing that's why I haven't seen it. What a powerhouse performance she gives every single time. I mean, I know that it's like, hey, you think Meryl Streep's a good actress? Like everybody thinks that. But just like watching this movie again, like reminded me just like truly what a force of nature she really is.
She really is. And it reminded me too, like she's just so talented. And initially, I don't know if you've seen that there's a new TV show that came out called Julia, based on like
Yes,
Julia
I did
Child.
hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was like this kind of like comparing, contrasting between her and Meryl Streep's
Yes.
performance.
Happens a lot
Yeah.
because, of course, when two people play the same role, you kind of naturally start to compare them. So I definitely think, I mean, I would be interested to check out the show just to see the comparison between like how her life is presented in the show versus the movie. So I might go check that out.
But if you guys haven't caught on to what movie we're going to be talking about this week, we will be talking about Julie and Julia, 2009.
Yes.
The movie's available to watch on Hulu, Vudu, Prime Video, and YouTube. This discussion will contain spoilers for the film, so if you haven't already seen it, go watch the movie and come back afterwards to hear our thoughts. Do you want to get into the synopsis?
Yeah. So, frustrated with a soul-killing job, New Yorker Julie Powell, who's played by Amy Adams, embarks on a daring project. She vows to prepare all 524 recipes in Julia Child's landmark cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. Intertwined with Julie's story is the true tale of how Julia Child, played, of course, by Meryl Streep, herself conquered French cuisine with passion, fearlessness, and plenty of butter.
And how Nora Ephron is the writer, director, and producer for the film.
Okay, so Nora Ephron was a Jewish American journalist, playwright, and filmmaker, best known for her romantic comedies. My personal favorite Nora Ephron movie, although she didn't direct it, she just wrote it, but it is and always will be When Harry Met Sally. That to me is like the iconic Nora Ephron movie
Yeah, it
for
is.
sure.
She's known for that movie.
Yes, I think that is a flawless movie. Like, I have zero notes. I love that movie so much. I practically have it memorized. So, Nora Ephron definitely has a big place in my heart. She grew up in Beverly Hills. The rest of her family were also writers. And she graduated from Wellesley College with a degree in political science in 1962. And after that, she actually worked as an intern for JFK, which is interesting when you consider that both Julie and Julia also worked for the government. She applied to be a writer at Newsweek, but after she was told that they didn't hire women as writers, she accepted a position as a mail girl, which, also a big thing in our industry is to start in the mailroom. She eventually quit because they wouldn't let her write, and she participated in a class action lawsuit against the magazine for sexual discrimination, which is such a slay. And both the lawsuit and her role in it were fictionalized in the 2016 Amazon series Good Girls Revolt. She first made a name for herself by writing a few words about breasts for Esquire, which was a humorous essay about body image that kind of established her as the enfant terrible of new journalism. I'm pretty sure I butchered the pronunciation of that, but in 1983, she wrote her first scripts. She co-wrote it with Alice Arlen. It was called Silkwood, and they were both nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the 1984 Oscars for the film. And she wrote When Harry Met Sally after that in 1986. Her directorial debut was the 1992 film This Is My Life. And in 2006, she was diagnosed with myelodysplasia, which is a form of pre-leukemia. She chose not to tell her friends or colleagues about her diagnosis because she didn't want it to affect her career. And she passed away on June 26, 2012 in New York from pneumonia at the age of 71. So we were robbed from, more years of her genius, but I'm so glad that she got to. I believe this was the final film she did before she died. Let me
Yeah.
check on that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this was her last film.
Yeah, this film came out in 2009, and then 2 years later, she passed away in 2012. Right? If I'm doing my math, 10, 11,
I
12,
think
like
it's
3 years.
but yes.
Yeah, 3 years. There you go.
Yeah, that was her last. But
Yeah,
that's Nora Ephron.
you did that beautifully. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Lizzie.
She deserves it. She is an icon forever.
When I hear this type of stuff, I'm like, what could they have done? Like, what more
Yes.
could they have done?
Yes, exactly. Like you always just want, because like 71, I mean, to us, that sounds old because we're only in our 20s, but it's really not very old at all. That in perspective, like Meryl Streep is only 73 now. She's like barely older than Nora Ephron was when she passed. So that kind of puts things in perspective because, Meryl Streep's career is like for the most part like still in full swing. So it's kind of, it really puts that in perspective to think about how much more Nora Ephron could have done if she'd had the chance.
Yeah, like way more movies. Maybe
Yeah.
kept working with Meryl Streep because they did work previously together on other projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really interesting to see what relationships form between directors and actors. Like a lot of the times directors work with the same actors over and over again. And honestly, if the one you're getting to work with is Meryl Streep, you're extremely lucky.
And you're in good hands.
Oh, absolutely. It's a match made in heaven. I mean, this film, it did get Meryl Streep her 16th Oscar nomination for acting. So,
Julie Powell, who wrote what this movie is based on, 365 days, 524 recipes, one tiny kitchen.
yes, one tiny apartment kitchen. And she wrote it based on her blog, which, she maintains throughout the movie. So I think Julie was like her name that she used, like that was like the name her like friends and family referred to her as. And then Julia was like her official like pen name. I think that was what it
Interesting.
was. Yeah. Because I mean, a lot of people who are named Julia go by something shorter. I know in the movie, Julia's husband refers to her as Jewel. So, you got some nicknames from that I'm sure stick among your loved ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't like my nickname, so I try
What
to,
do people
get
call
rid
you,
of them.
Chels?
No, they used to. I mean, one of my friends calls me Chels, but like my mom has like this nickname for me.
I would love to like, how like some places will do like outdoor screenings or whatever, like during the summer. I would love to go to a Julie and Julia screening where it's like a potluck and everybody brings some kind of dish. That would be so fun.
Yeah, you know that scene where they're on the rooftop and she's
Yes. Oh
having
my
the
God. I
last
was so
celebration?
jealous of that.
Yes, it was so like nostalgic because that's one of my favorite things to do in the city is like get on a rooftop, but like the lights made it perfect. Like
The like candles and everything was so I definitely feel like that was something that kind of changed as I'm watching this movie as an adult because it's like all of the sudden I'm like, oh, this is like not that far off from my life. Like obviously the whole like, having a like grown up non-film job. I still always see like I always think of film jobs as like not as scary because I've done it and I haven't really done anything else. So any like non-film job in my mind is like automatically more grown up, I guess. But like seeing her like married and grown up and working this job, but also still having like undertones of like stuff that we're going through, like, looking for a direction in life and like looking for something to give us purpose. Definitely like rings way more true than it does when you're a kid, because when you're a kid, you don't think about that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. When I learned that she was third, like quote unquote 30, and I'm like, wow, this is like me going through like my midlife crisis, like
Yes.
thinking, am I happy where I'm at? Like, am I happy with what I'm doing with my time? Where am I at right now? And a lot of us do struggle with it.
This movie will always have a special place in my heart because this is the very first movie I ever saw my uncle act in. My uncle is Chris Messina. He played Julie's husband, Eric. And so that's why this movie is always going to be so special to me, is because that was the first time I'd ever seen him act in anything.
Oh, yes. I forgot that you mentioned that to me.
Yeah, I remember it was really funny because that was right around the time that my aunt and uncle were having their first kid. And I remember my uncle calling my grandma and I, and like I was with my grandma and like some of our other family members, and he called us and he was like, because my grandma was a nurse, and the scene very early in the movie where Eric and Julie are eating bruschetta while they talk about like how she's going to start her blog. Um, so I mean, as you know, like most of the time in movies when actors are eating, they get a spit bucket. So like in between takes, you spit the food out, so that you're not swallowing all this food and like eating a bunch of food on set, because then you're gonna get sick. So actually also that reminds me, apparently Chris Pratt is famous for not using a spit bucket on set. Like he's known for that. Like anytime you see Chris Pratt eating in a scene, he's always like actually eating, which I think is so funny. But I remember my uncle called my grandma and was like, I feel really sick. They had me eat a bunch of bruschetta and I couldn't use a spit bucket because of the way the shot was lined up. I had to swallow. And then also, like, I think it was like literally the scene after that where they're like going to bed and Eric takes Tums. Like he takes Tums several times throughout the movie because, the joke is being like his wife is serving him all this like fatty food. So he has to keep taking Tums. And apparently they gave him real Tums to take. And so he called my grandma and he was like, I just took like 30 Tums. Am I going to be okay?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they didn't give him a placebo. They gave him real Tums. So I remember at the time thinking like, oh my God, why did he have to take so many? He only takes one in the movie. Like I didn't understand the concept of multiple takes. So that was funny to like hear that for the first time. And obviously he ended up being okay. Like nobody's gonna die from taking too many Tums. But it's definitely funny when I was rewatching the movie, I was like, oh yeah, there's the bruschetta.
That's so cute. That is like, I was thinking about that scene when I watched it. Because, like I said, I don't really remember all that happens in this movie. I'm like, damn, that bruschetta looks good.
Oh my God, all the food looks so good. The thing
He looked
is
like he was
also like,
enjoying it though.
oh yeah, and like the duck was the thing. I don't even know if I've had duck before, but like for some reason I really wanted to eat that duck. I don't know. I may have had duck before. I don't remember, but it looked so good. I think it was because also the duck is the thing that she like hyped up through the whole movie. Was like she's like, I gotta figure out how to bone a duck. And then she finally did it. And it looked so good.
It was like an intense process.
Yeah, I mean, I literally only started actually cooking for myself a couple months ago. I can like barely handle really basic stuff. When I saw her boning that duck, I was like, I could never do that.
Yeah, I can't cook. I've tried. I mean, sometimes I do throw things together and it works out in my
Yeah.
favor. And I'm like, I don't know how I did this, but like bon appetit. It just doesn't come naturally to me. And I feel like cooking just comes naturally to some people.
Yes, it does. I always like envied my mom because she is a fantastic cook and she makes it really easy. It was actually kind of cute. Because in this movie, multiple times they reference that really famous cookbook, The Joy of Cooking, and they have like the writer talk about like, or an actress playing the writer talk about how she got like cheated out of her book and whatever. My mom gave me a copy of that book when I moved out to go to college. Like when, not my first year, because I just lived in a dorm, but my second year when I had an actual like on campus apartment with a kitchen, my mom gave me that book. And I was like, and it was so heavy and thick. And I was like, I'm never going to cook anything from this. I don't
So
think
did
I
you
have
not?
ever cooked. No, I don't think I've ever. I need to go find it and like cook something from it just so that I can say I did. But yeah, that book is huge. So I don't even know how big like Julia Child's book is, but I mean in the movie Julie says like this book weighs like 2 pounds. So I'm guessing it's a very heavy book as well with a lot. I
Yeah,
mean 500 recipes is so many.
to do. Now, speaking of 500 recipes, I'm like, this is a lot to take on, right? But
Yeah.
couldn't you just lie and say that you could be a really good writer, right? And just lie and describe
Yeah.
all of these experiences that could have happened, but didn't
Right.
actually happen. But then she makes that reference like, no, like she wants to be truthful, like she wants to be
Yes,
honest
like
with
she's
her
like, I
readers.
would know because I think ultimately, like, it kind of comes down to like she was doing this ultimately, like, at least as it's presented in the film, like, this was something she was doing for herself. There's that scene where she's on the phone with her mom while she's cooking, and she's like, this is all I have. And Eric's like, really? And she backtracks and she's like, you know what I mean? Like, there was kind of this undercurrent of like him worrying that like she wasn't satisfied with her life because of like them living in Queens or whatever. Like, you know, she clearly had this like insecurity about her life that this was kind of filling that void. And I think that contributes to the big fight they have later, but we'll get to that later. But we'll never get to know what she would have written like now because unfortunately she passed away a couple months ago.
I
She was
know,
only, I believe she was only 49. That's
from
so
cardiac
young.
arrest, which is so young to even have at that age.
Yeah. My family is like that is the number one thing in my family. Like we all just kind of from heart attacks at a certain point. Not so much like so there's less of a family history of like, you know, everybody's got something. So my family is not like really so much on like the cancer side of things. I feel like with most families it's either like cancer or heart disease. And so, you know, my grandma like passed away at a very young, I mean not very young, but like she was in her 70s as well when she passed away from a heart attack a few years ago. So, I mean, 49 is just so young to just suddenly like drop dead at your in your kitchen or whatever. That's just horrifying to me.
Yeah. I know
So,
it's so
I mean, I guess
sad.
it's just another reminder of like you gotta live every day like it's your last or whatever people say. But I mean, at least she got to experience, like, you know, because also this film is the journey of her starting to feel like she's like a quote unquote real writer. So, you know, at least she got to do what she loved before she passed away. Most people don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, she was able to accomplish what she wanted to do and she did something for herself. And I feel like this movie came out at a good time for her because she was able to
Yes.
release her second book along with
Yes.
the release
Yeah.
of this movie. So it like gave
Yes.
her that boost.
Yeah, authors love to do that. And honestly, more power to them because you got to do whatever you can. I mean, this whole movie is about how hard it is to publish a book and like be a published writer. So that was, I really wanted to be a writer when I was like a little kid. But then I kind of got older and I was like, this seems hard and like sad because it's just like constant rejection. So yeah,
This
I mean,
industry.
yeah, like that's why like at the end of the book at the end of the film when like both of the characters are kind of able to reach this place of catharsis with their like writer's journey was very nice to see.
No, it is nice to see. It's very heartwarming because
Yes, it is.
us
Yeah.
as like artists, we try to keep positive and try to keep encourage ourselves to like keep going with our projects, you know, and our passions, our side
Yeah.
hustles. And it's hard when we're getting this constant rejection or where we don't see progress in what we're putting out. But this is just a reminder to like never give up that she
Yeah.
even started with no viewers in the beginning, not thinking that people were going to
When
read her
she
blog.
got the first comment and it was from her mom, I thought that was so funny.
That is so funny because I actually pointed this out to my fiance because I had her watching this with me too. I'm like, that's how I felt when I got my first comment on Film Spill just recently, actually on the Instagram. It was like a really cute comment, but I'm like, okay, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is how we kind of got to where we are. Like the same kind of desire to like, just find our like purpose in life and kind of, fill the creative void that like exists within everybody, or at least within most people. I also think that there's kind of some interesting like context to be had about like the early internet. Because I mean, most people like didn't like the internet in 2002 was a wildly different place than it was is now. Like it's not even the same. Do you know that Bo Burnham song, Welcome to the Internet?
Maybe if I like heard it.
It's the one from Inside, where he's talking about like all the crazy stuff that like represents, current internet culture. But he has a part where he says like, um, not very long ago, just before your time, he's because the song is kind of addressing like basically kids these days to an extent. Not very long ago, just before your time, right before the towers fell, circa 99, this was catalogs, travel logs, a chat room or two. So it was kind of just like this like 9/11 era internet of like everything here is pretty chill. It's kind of just some people like documenting their lives. And it's kind of interesting to see that and kind of think about how different things would be now if it was 2022 and she was starting this project. Like, what platform would she have used? Like, I could picture her doing this as like a TikTok account if this were today. Like this is the kind of thing people do on TikTok now and on other platforms. So it's kind of interesting to think of where this would have gone if it were today and not 20 years ago.
Isn't it wild to think that so much has changed throughout the
Yes.
years and that
And I
we've
mean,
lived
I know
it?
that, yeah. And like this is probably different, resonating different for you since you're a New Yorker, but I thought it was really interesting that she was working on handling stuff from 9/11 because that's got to be like the most soul-crushing job you can have. And so of course she wanted to come home to a lovely kitchen and like cook and feel at home because her day job was like listening to people talk about how that like there's that one scene where the lady is like, my husband was like a first responder at 9/11 and now his lungs are full of fiberglass, like that's such a heavy thing to help someone with, and then you get to come home and like put that out of your mind for a little bit.
No, I know. And it's still a heavyweight here in New York, especially during 9/11.
I'm sure, yeah.
But it's always so like you feel it.
I
You
was
feel
gonna
the
go when I
heaviness.
was in New York, but I was really sick, so my mom and sister went without me. But yeah, and I mean, it also ties to Julia Child's time in the OSS. They talk about how she and her husband met doing that. I mean, that was a precursor to the CIA. So they were on like a whole different level of like government work than Julie was. But I did think it was interesting that they both worked for the government and decided like this sucks. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
go cook some food instead because this is sad.
What also caught my attention with her work is when she wrote that blog post and she like called out sick. And her boss pretty much calls her in and is like,
Yeah,
oh, someone else will take your job for you if you like try
yeah,
to call in
yeah,
sick. I'm like, why is this so accurate though?
yeah. Well, I honestly, because he was like, anybody else would have fired you. Like, I would have definitely felt like I was going to be fired if I were her. I don't think I would have put that out there because I would like knowing that your coworkers read your blog. First of all, that would make me just like die of embarrassment. If I knew that my coworkers were reading my blog. I don't have a blog, but if I did, I would be sad if like my coworkers were reading it because I would be like, wow, this is so embarrassing. So, but also like when they almost fire her, she just goes like, okay, because she didn't really give a shit about that job, which I thought was funny. So, but yeah, I mean, I can only imagine, where that journey would have taken her if she did it 20 years later.
Yeah, like where her like stardom could have been because I feel like
Yeah.
people fell off in the early 2000s. So like people became famous for a chunk of time in the early 2000s, and then when it started getting late 2000s, it was like a
Yes.
whole nother generation, and like everyone
Yeah.
stopped talking about that other generation, which I think is,
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
and part of it for me is also like, for example, like when I was first starting to get into like, you know, some of the YouTubers that I was like really into in like 2010, 2011, if you got like 200,000 views on a video, that was considered like viral. And now there are some viral videos that get like 100 million views. So the scale of like who is seeing your stuff is like not even a real, it's like it's not even a number that you can comprehend anymore.
And what helps that is all of the different platforms that have
Yeah.
emerged, because we are changing as a generation. People's consumption of media is changing. So now we're
Yeah.
adapting to that, but it's kind of hard to adapt in like
Yeah.
industries, right? Because
Hmm.
everyone's adapting to it differently at a different
Yes.
pace.
So yeah, I mean, it's known, it's been put out there that Nora Ephron did want all the actors to eat, which ties into, you know, the story about my uncle. It says that he said that he wouldn't eat all day before meal scenes so that he would be hungry enough to do the same take over and over. That makes total sense. That lines up exactly with what he told me. And also Meryl Streep gained 15 pounds. Damn, that talk about like the freshman 15, more like the filming 15. They had a culinary consultant and executive chef on set. Oh, Nora Ephron wanted the the food to look pornographic, which is so funny. My mom is always showing me magazines of like cooking magazines and talking about food porn, so I totally get that.
Because it
And
looks
I did
so
think it
good.
was, oh my God, I know. And it is interesting also that they tried to replicate Julia Child's Zero Kitchen at the end because you know you have that part at the end where where Julie is going to visit the Smithsonian and see Julia Child's kitchen. And so that was really like a nice kind of tying everything together, you know. And in comparison, Julie's kitchen looks like small and cramped and sad. And there's that one scene where she's like, I can't cook anything in here. And her husband's like,
That's all
so
New York City apartments.
yeah,
Literally, there's
yeah.
no kitchen in any of them.
No, I've seen it. I've seen all the New York apartment stuff. There is no room to bone a duck in New York City kitchens.
No, but her or like seeing her apartment, I'm like, wow, this is so accurate. Like you would be living in a studio apartment above a pizzeria.
Above a pizzeria and not like a like bar or like something that's going to be loud. But I did think it was funny. There was that one scene where, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but there's the scene where when Eric is gone, like when they're having their fight, Julie's mom calls her and asks where Eric is, and Julie says that he's out getting pizza. And I thought that was funny because for him to get pizza, he would just have to like go downstairs.
Yeah, you shouldn't be taking him too long.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Meryl Streep had to wear specifically designed shoes that made her 5 to 6 inches taller. That was something I was wondering about because, you know, I knew that Julia Child was iconic for being tall. That was not something I knew when I first saw this movie because I didn't know who Julia Child was. But I think they did a really good job. I especially loved the scenes with her sister, played by Jane Lynch, because Jane Lynch is already pretty tall. So it was kind of funny to me. I mean, Jane Lynch is already 6 feet tall. So it was kind of funny to me that they had to make her look even taller. Um,
Yeah, they did
just
a
to
great
like match up
job.
with everything. I loved the scene where I think one of the most like Nora Ephron-esque scenes in this movie to me is the scene where the sister has just shown up to town and like they take her to that party and she starts talking to that guy and Julia is like, or it was either Julia or her husband who was like, I can't see Dorothy running off with that guy, and then it immediately smash cuts to their wedding. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, right. That was a great like addition. Which, speaking of which, right? Nora Ephron
Yeah.
had to write this screenplay. She had to do all of this research
Yeah.
between both Julia and Julie to and
Yep.
then mesh the stories together. Like
Yeah.
that's so hard to even think about that
It
concept.
definitely helps like you know kind of to examine that like they had so many clear parallels in their life in terms of like how they both kind of like cooking was a thing that they both kind of like fell into to an extent. Um, I think part of it also is they never like outright address this in the movie, but Julia Child was apparently very sad that she couldn't have children. And you can see that in the scene where she finds out that her sister is pregnant and then she starts crying and her husband starts comforting her. Um, the couple was they were never able to conceive children, but Julia really wanted children. And so I think that, I mean, it's kind of interesting to think like if she had had children, maybe she never would have written this cookbook that changed the world because, you know, she was constantly talking in the movie about how she had nothing to do. And that's why she wanted to write this cookbook. And so it kind of made me wonder, like, you know, if she had gotten the thing that she wanted, maybe she never would have gotten to do this other thing. So it was kind of interesting how they both kind of they thought their life was going to go in a different direction. You know, Julie thought she was going to be this like big famous writer, and then it ended up both happening for them in ways that they could never anticipate.
Now, do you think that no matter which route that we go, and like specifically in like Julia Child's case, where this
Mm-hmm.
came later in life, do you think that whatever we're meant to do will align with us eventually,
You know,
regardless
that's
of
something
like
that
our
I think
timeline?
about a lot, because I always wonder, like, how do I know if I'm like doing the right thing with my life? I think it comes down to like, you know, there's a lot of people who believe like whatever is meant to you will for you will find you. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I'd like to think it's true, but in the end, I think that like you kind of have to accept that you can't do everything with your life. Like you can't do every single thing that you want to do because there's just not enough time on this like earth to do everything that you could ever want to do. So I think that honestly, maybe like the best thing that we can hope for maybe is that like reincarnation is real or something so we can have more time to do stuff. If it is real, I hope that we like don't get to like remember our previous lives because that would kind of suck to be like, oh man, I must have screwed up last time if I'm here again. But I mean, yeah, I kind of always wonder about that. Like, are we really ever gonna find the thing that we're like meant for? But I mean, I guess maybe it is like how this movie presents, where it's like, you know, your life ends up just going down all these different meandering paths and you never know what's gonna come up.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like so many things can come your way at like different times. Every decision that you make matters because it can reflect on your future. Like it's just
Yeah,
wild to think that, there's endless opportunities out there, but you don't know what path you're going to go down.
yeah. And you know, I feel like that kind of comes down to like scenic design, the like cinematic, you know, choices that were made here and like the costumes and everything kind of because it kind of aligned the two women and separated them at the same time because you know you have this like claustrophobic New York life that Julie is living and then you have this life that Julia is living that's so big and like spacious and you're in France and there's all this gorgeous scenery and stuff and it's like they were both in these completely different places and still neither of them was like truly happy, you know, until they found the thing that gave them purpose. They were both just kind of fucking around before that. So it's kind of just like wherever you are physically, it's like you could be in the shittiest New York apartment or you could be in the gorgeous French like countryside and still be miserable.
Yeah, or still do whatever it is that you want to do. Like she still
Yeah.
made cooking work for her in a
Yeah,
tiny
even when she
kitchen.
had to move to like Norway or whatever, she was still going.
She was still cooking with all her pans.
Yeah, oh my God. I did love all the scenes of her trying to pass her exam, the Le Cordon Bleu exam. That was so funny to see. Um, like how she was chopping like a million onions.
Yeah, she actually did that. So
Yeah.
Amy Adams had a secondhand person come in for her when it came to like the food chopping scenes, but Meryl Streep, she did it all herself.
Yeah, I loved the part where the husband walked in and he immediately had to like cover his eyes. Because that happens to me when I chop even one onion.
Me too. Like, I don't
Okay,
know
I
how she
do
did
have.
it.
So if you want to make chopping an onion easier, you can put it in the freezer for like 10 minutes And also, if you put a wet paper towel on the cutting board, it helps because whatever chemical is in the onion that makes you cry is drawn to water. And that's why you cry, because the nearest watery thing is usually your own eyeballs. So if you put a wet paper towel down, then it will like redirect that. I don't understand science, but it helps if if you're listening to this and you need onion chopping tips, there you go. Yeah, but I do think it's interesting that Meryl did it all herself because that was a really huge pile of onions.
She really goes all out for all her roles.
I was thinking about how difficult it would be to play somebody who's like 6 inches taller than you. They did a really good job disguising the fact that Meryl Streep is not actually that tall. Costume designer had said that in the modern portions of the movie, she kind of designed things to be, quote, mushy and blurry because she wanted to reflect the cultural mood during, post 9/11 New York. And I thought that was really good too, because, I was looking at her outfits, her haircut. It all felt so out of time, It felt like I was harkening back to a time that I lived through but didn't really live through, if that makes sense. Because like we were alive, but we were babies. So we were like 3. So we didn't really kind of have our feet in that sort of like post 9/11, like America culture shock kind of thing that is in this movie. So I found that really interesting.
Some things that also caught my attention with just the timeline and things that we would see a lot in television. So one was just the talk about dieting. And when they were like sitting as a group, and she was like, don't eat that. And it was like literally like the skinniest piece of like a bread.
Yeah, it was that scene where she was like sitting with her like fake friends really got to me. Because I was like, I don't really have any friends who are like businessy business people, at least not yet. But it was definitely funny to see that she was kind of in this place where like she was married and she had a job, but she didn't feel like she kind of felt like she was like play acting at being an adult. And that's like totally how I feel. Like I'm 24 years old and I'm still like, I'm not actually an adult. I'm just pretending. But, so it was kind of interesting to see that reflected with somebody who was like a few years older than us.
Yeah, I feel like that's why we're at this like stage of our lives that we still kind of feel like kids because we feel like we were just 18 yesterday.
Exactly.
But at the same time, like we're growing up and we're going to hit our 30s soon. Not like soon, but you know what I mean.
Whenever I get an existential crisis about getting older, I watch the Friends episode called the one where they all turn 30 because it's really funny to see how like people deal with that, because that's like in my brain I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to be 30 one day. So I don't know why that's such like a big, I don't want to say fear, but like concern of mine is to turn 30. I don't know. I'll probably listen to this in a few years and laugh at myself for being scared of that. I did love the cat that they had, the same cat on set the whole time. I did not know that my uncle was bonding with the cat. I think that's very, very cute.
Maybe you should ask him, be like, did you bond with the cat?
Yeah, because my aunt and uncle don't have a pet cat. They only have dogs. So I think it's funny that he bonded with the cat, because obviously I'm a cat person. When I saw that it was an orange cat, I was like, yeah, of course they have an orange cat.
I know, right?
Yeah, and I did, because also here we're also talking about how differently the husbands handled the situation with their wives becoming like completely obsessed with something. And I thought it was really sweet that he gave her those pearls for her birthday, so that she could look like Julia, and she didn't take them off for like the whole rest of the movie. I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah, because she grew like an attachment to her. Like it made her feel close. Like this was like her icon. And she had a moment, right, where her icon kind of turned her down. And that is my biggest fear.
That is the, have you ever heard the phrase never meet your heroes?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Basically like never, you just never want to meet the people that have influenced your life the most, because they're never going to live up to how you picture them. And I can only imagine how devastated I would be if my idol was like, you're annoying and I don't like you. I was so like, because if I were her after that, I don't think I would have been able to finish the project. I was really like, I really admire her for being able to like pick herself up and like be for like the thing that her husband said about like, you know, the version of her that lives in your head is perfect, but she's not perfect in reality. You like you are still, if she doesn't like you, that doesn't mean that you're worthless or that what you're doing is worthless.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you still have to find your own self-worth. Like you shouldn't rely on
Yeah.
someone else to give you that validation.
Right, because out of all the like comments she got and all the journalists and literary agents calling her and promising that her dreams would come true, and all the like gifts she was getting from her readers, in the end, like none of that could overpower the fact that her idol did not approve of what she was doing. And also, I am completely baffled as to why Julia Child would be upset that somebody was trying to cook all her recipes. I thought that was the point of her making that cookbook. I was really astonished to hear that she was like, no. Like that was so crazy to me.
Yeah, that she took it the wrong way. And
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it's okay. So Julia Child passed away in 2009, I
Yes.
believe, right?
I think it was right around the time the movie was coming out. So she was long gone by the time this movie came out. But I think the script was written while she was still alive, I believe. The script was written much, much more before the movie was filmed. So
Okay.
that's she was probably still alive when they wrote the script. But oh, and also I just found the card that they send out with the picture of that Julia Child and her husband send out with them in the bathtub. That's a real picture.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now. It's really cute.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, they
I know,
really
isn't that so
did.
cute? They really
I
did
have
it.
to include this.
Yes, it's so cute. If you're listening to this and you haven't seen this picture, just Google Julia Child bathtub and it'll come up and you can see this really cute picture of her and her husband in the
Like,
bathtub
who would have
together.
even thought, like, okay, we're gonna send Valentine's Day cards. Let's take pictures in the
I
bathtub.
know, I never even considered the idea of sending Valentine's I know people send out like Christmas cards as a couple or as a family, but I didn't know people did that for Valentine's Day, so that's cute.
I know I'm about to start.
Yeah,
Catch me
exactly.
replicating this.
Interesting also that Nora Ephron printed out the entire blog to take notes on before, finishing the script for the movie. I would be very curious to go back and read her blog now and see if it's still up and like if you can, read everything in order.
Yeah, I was going to investigate to see if I could find where I could maybe purchase her book, like if it's still available to purchase.
She has a blog spot that's still up, but it wasn't updated after 2010. So I think that she must have moved away from that a little bit towards like, you know, that like a new platform, I guess.
And then yeah, it started fading away in 2015, roughly around 2015, because then I forget what else started coming out, but I know Instagram really started shooting up, started skyrocketing, and
Yeah.
people realized like, hey, we don't need to write blogs to get people's attentions. Like we can
Yes.
take pictures and
It's
do
also
videos.
funny, her blog is so out of date that in the links column there is a link to donate aid to Hurricane Katrina survivors. That's how long it's been since this blog's been updated. But I do feel like food, like writing and stuff has become a much, much more visual medium than you can really do with a blog. Like, you think about like tasty videos on social media and like cooking. Like, have you ever watched like Binging with Babish and like that kind of stuff?
No, I haven't.
Oh, there's like all these like food YouTube channels that are all focused on like different aspects of cooking and food. And so like having a blog, like, because in the movie she doesn't post any pictures on her blog, she just describes everything. So it's kind of like how visual would, she have had to get if she was doing that experiment these days.
Exactly. Like she really had to go in depth and really create a great persona for people to start connecting to it. And I know that's how I try to reflect myself as a writer. I'm like, what can people be able to relate to? Like, what can I write or how can I write it? And writing is such a hard task to do,
Yeah,
especially when
it
you're trying to
is.
really be descriptive. But now, like thinking like Julia Child could have her own like TikTok show or
Oh my
like
God, can
be
you
on
imagine?
YouTube, like so much could go on. And yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. Like because people use their social platforms for different things. And I'm always
Yes.
on like the food side of Instagram and just like
Yes.
scrolling
Yeah.
and seeing how people prepare like nicely their food. And
Yeah,
it's
I
just
also
amazing.
feel like there's an aspect of vulnerability to a blog, especially her blog, that is hard to replicate visually. Like because she was basically treating the blog like her diary, especially writing all like she wrote a whole post about how she was having a fight with her husband. I don't think I feel like I would have been embarrassed to write that, but she was willing to just put her whole life on out there for everybody to experience. And that is a heavy, heavy load to bear, knowing that your personal business is out there. And so I feel like that's why, social media is such a curated experience. You're seeing the parts of people's lives that they want you to see.
Mhm.
And back then, like her blog, it just wasn't like that. It was just, she was just putting everything out there for better or
Yeah.
for worse.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to put your life out there and to know that you're going to receive some kind of criticism and you don't know what it is. You could have that positive feedback, not saying no one's going to be there to like, be some sort of support, but there is a lot of backlash with the internet and people always have
Oh
something
yeah.
to say and you can't always please everyone on the internet. Like seriously, people have something to say about the littlest things, which is like
I'm sure
mind
she
blowing to
got
me.
some hate comments too. People being like, this is dumb. You shouldn't do this. Like, I'm sure she got some hate or whatever. I mean, she got hate from Julia Child. So I feel like, I mean, I obviously can't read Julia Child's mind. I wish I could because then I'd be much better at cooking. But I feel like she might have seen the project as sort of a cheapening of what she intended because French cooking is very like time consuming and it's very like nitpicky, like they're very specific about how you're supposed to do things. And so I think maybe the idea of somebody trying to like rush through the recipes kind of upset her, I guess.
Oh
But that's just
yeah, I
like
didn't even
pure
think about it like
conjecture.
that.
Yeah, that's just like
Yeah.
pure conjecture that I have no evidence for whatsoever. But I was racking my brain trying to think of whatever reason she could have to not have liked it.
Thank you for listening. This has been Film Spill, a movie night podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. All are at Film Spill Pod. Tell a friend about the podcast if you like, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts that'll help other people find Film Spill too. Special thanks to Onyx Films for promoting us, and you can check out Onyx's other projects at onyx-films.com.
Until next time, don't cry over a spilled film.